Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Dari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Dari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Vishnu Paramahamsa Parivartikachaya Ashtadharasata Shri Srimad Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Grantha Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. I'm not sure. Maybe they're disassembled somewhere. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Thank you. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Sixth Canto, Prescribed Duties for Mankind, Chapter 16, King Chitraketu meets the Supreme Lord, text 26. I thought that he spoke on this one yesterday. Huh? He spoke on 25 and 26 because I remember he was talking about Bhakti Parishanu Bhavo Viraktir Anyatra Cha, right? He was talking about that, and that's in purport of 26. Well, should we just chant this one and then Shri Shukuvacha Bhaktyaitam Prapannaya Vidyam Adishya Narada Yav Angirasa Sakam Dhamma Swayam Bhuvam Prabhu Sri Shukadev Goswami continued. Narada, having become the spiritual master of Chittaketu, instructed him fully in this prayer because Chittaketu was fully surrendered. O King Parikshit, Narada then left with the great sage Angira for the topmost planet known as Brahmaloka. Text 27. Chitraketus tutam vidyam yata narada bhashitam Daryam asasaptaham abhaksha susamahitaha. Okay, translation. And purports by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. It's interesting. You don't see this A-B on the last line of the 27th verse.
Yeah, because it was a P, meaning water.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see that P became a B because it was
Fasting and drinking only water, Chitraketu for 1 week continuously chanted with great care and attention the mantra given by Narada Muni. 28. O King Parikshit, after only 1 week of repeatedly practicing the mantra received from the spiritual master, Chitraketu achieved the rule of the planet of the Vidyadharas as an intermediate product of his spiritual advancement and knowledge. Purport. If a devotee, after being initiated, adheres rigidly to the instructions of the spiritual master, he is naturally endowed with the material opulences of Vidyadhara Adhipatyam and similar posts as byproducts. A devotee need not practice yoga, karma, or jnana to achieve a successful result. Devotional service alone is competent to award a devotee all material power. A pure devotee, however, is never attached to material power, although he gets it very easily without personal endeavor. Chitraketu received this side benefit of his devotional service, which he rigidly performed in accordance with the instructions of Narada. Read one more. Tata katipaya horbir vidyayeda manogatihi jugama deva devasya sheshasya charanantikam. Thereafter, within a very few days, by the influence of the mantra that Chitraketu had practiced, his mind became increasingly enlightened in spiritual progress, and he attained shelter at the lotus feet of Anantadev. Purport. A devotee's ultimate achievement is to take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord and any of the planets in the spiritual sky. As a result of rigid execution of devotional service, a devotee receives all material opulences, if these are required. Otherwise, the devotee is not interested in material opulences, nor does the Supreme Lord award them. When the devotee is actually engaged in the devotional service of the Lord, his apparently material opulences are not material, they are all spiritual. For example, if a devotee spends money to construct a beautiful and costly temple, the construction is not material but spiritual. Nirbandha Krishna Sambandhe Yukta Vairagam Uchite. A devotee's mind is never diverted to the material side of the temple. The brick, stone, and wood used in the construction of the temple are spiritual, just as the deity, although made of stone, is not stone but the Supreme Personality of Godhead Himself. The more one advances in spiritual consciousness, the more he can understand the elements of devotional service. Nothing in devotional service is material, everything is spiritual. Consequently, a devotee is awarded so-called material opulence for spiritual advancement. This opulence is an aid to help the devotee advance toward the spiritual kingdom. Thus, Maharaj Chitraketu remained in material opulence as a Vidyadhara Pati, master of the Vidyadharas, and by executing devotional service he became perfect within a few days and returned home back to Godhead, taking shelter of the lotus feet of Lord Shesha Ananta. A karmi's material opulence and a devotee's material opulence are not on the same level. Srila Madhva Acharya comments in this way: Anya taryaminam vishnum apasyanya samipagaha bhavedyo yatayatasya padamva prapnuyan naraha. By worshipping Lord Vishnu, one can get whatever he desires. But a pure devotee never asks Lord Vishnu for any profit, any material profit. Instead, he serves Lord Vishnu without material desires and is therefore ultimately transferred to the spiritual kingdom. In this regard, Srila Viraraghava Acharya comments, Yateshta Gatir Idyartaha. By worshipping Vishnu, a devotee can get whatever he likes. Maharaj Chittaketu wanted only to return home, back to Godhead, and therefore he achieved success in that way. Gananjana Shalakya Chakshulanamadhamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karitivachalam Pagam Langai Tegirim Yakipatamaham Bande Shri Gurunditanam Bancha Kabadubishta Kripasindubevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Forgot to wear your shirt today. Where's Tyler? You know where he is?
I think he went shopping.
Oh, okay. He had to go to court?
Traffic ticket or something.
Really? He went shopping, you think?
I asked him to pick up some vinegar, distilled vinegar. He says, I'm going on the way to court and I can do this.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, what, he's going to court? Okay. So, Narada Muni gave Maharaj Chittaketu a mantra, and he was chanting this mantra. It says that by chanting this particular mantra, he achieved rule of the planet of the Vidyadharas. So he got this very high post. And Srila Prabhupada makes the point in the purport of 28 that a devotee may be naturally endowed with material opulences or similar posts as byproducts of devotional service. A devotee need not perform these other things, other processes to get these, you could say, benefits or these particular achievements of material power or whatever it may be. So now, of course, this you could say may present a problem. It doesn't have to, but it may present a problem or may become a problem, which one of our acharyas, one of our great acharyas, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, who is such an amazing acharya. I mean, of course, they're all amazing, but he wrote so many commentaries. He wrote a commentary on Bhagavad Gita. Srila Prabhupada was very inspired by his commentary on Bhagavad Gita, specifically chapter 2, text 41, I believe, Vyavasyatmaka Buddhir Ekeha Kurunandana, that those who are on the path of Krishna consciousness, their intelligence is one, or their determination is one, whereas those who are not on this path, their intelligence is many-branched. So and he makes the point in the purport, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, that the whole idea in spiritual life is that one should take the order of the spiritual master as one's life and soul. And it doesn't matter if the material world, you could say, becomes destroyed, or it doesn't matter if it blows up, you could say in modern terminology. Doesn't matter if I go to hell, doesn't matter if I'm here or there or whatever, but my main business is to fulfill the order of my spiritual master as my life and soul. So reading this particular verse and purport, specifically the purport from Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Srila Prabhupada gained great inspiration to, of course he was always thinking of coming to the West, but this verse really inspired him, this purport also. And he's written so many wonderful commentaries on verses of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the 10th canto. He brings up many wonderful illuminations on the 10th canto. So we also sing a song, right, that he wrote every day in the morning, right? Samsara Davana Lita Loka. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he wrote this book, Madhurya Kadambini, and it's a small book, but really, it's really condensed with transcendental knowledge. But he goes into the different, you could say, obstacles that one may face while practicing Krishna consciousness. So he lists different ones. Like, for example, he lists one to be pride. Pride in the sense that he mentions like a young Brahmin boy. Okay, he gets his Brahminical initiation and he's studying scripture and so on, but he thinks, oh yes, I mastered this. I mastered scripture, right? And I'm such a powerful Brahmin. But he's hardly. But I mean, Brahmins are supposed to be humble, right? So he has a lot to learn, but he thinks he's very learned. That's a problem. So that could be a particular obstacle. Another obstacle he lists that the fluctuation of the mind. Sometimes devotees go through this. Specifically, he gives the example of, should I get married or should I not get married? He specifically gives this example. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Seems that he knows the devotees. Knows the obstacles well. You see that sometimes in young, because I'm just speaking from perspective of seeing men join the ashram, but should I not, right? Back and forth. Should I take sannyas, or should I get married, or should I this or that? So he seems, he's, you could say, describing the flickering nature of the mind. So that could be an obstacle. Also, just this idea of, you could say, which is a bit of a passionate endeavor, should I do this, should I do that, or confused. But also just in relation to, that could be expanded in terms of going further, not just should I get married, should I not get married, but okay, well, should I get divorced, should I not get divorced, should I move to Hawaii, should I not move to Hawaii, should I reject my spiritual master and accept another spiritual master, should I reject this service and accept another service? There's a lot of, so this could be an obstacle. So he mentions these two. He also mentions specifically, there's a number of other ones he mentions, but we won't go through all of them. But one of the things he mentions is this, what's being mentioned in verse 28 and purport of the 28th verse today, that by practicing Krishna consciousness, one may get some material opulence as a byproduct. And he, in Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he says this about he says that sometimes people get material opulence and become bewildered by it. He says riding the waves of, I'm forgetting the Sanskrit term. You could say riding the waves. Yeah, I think so. Riding the waves of this material opulence. And he gives the example that one takes to Krishna consciousness and one becomes somewhat situated or whatever, then people, they naturally show respect and they give to that person. They give stuff, money, this, that. And one could fall into that. You could say become bewildered by that material opulence. So that's an obstacle that can present itself before a devotee. And this actually has ruined many of the, how do you say that? Many a devotee? This says, yeah. You have the book there? Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's book?
No, this is a quote from Bhakti, but he did it before.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I'm just wondering what are the, because I listed 3 of the obstacles. One was becoming bewildered by material opulence or riding the waves. One was becoming proud or thinking oneself learned when they have a lot to learn. One was, what was the last one I mentioned? Yeah, the mind, going back and forth. But I think that there's probably another 4 or so. But, so yeah, this has ruined many a devotee. This has spoiled the spiritual lives of many personalities, actually. This particular issue of becoming bewildered by material opulence. It has actually ruined whole institutions, not just one person. It has ruined whole institutions, spiritual institutions. Within, I'm not just talking about, the other guys. Means other religions, right? Vaishnava institutions, it is ruined. This particular one.
Let me just read it because it made a little bit.
Can you pass that to me? Can you pass it to me, Saul? I just want to see. Yes. Yeah, utsa mai, this sudden enthusiasm, right? It's this enthusiasm. They have this burst of zeal and enthusiasm, which often stems from pride. Yeah. So the second is this ganatarala, which sometimes enthusiastic, sometimes lethargic. So like going back and forth, right? Unsteady. The other one is Vyuda Vikalpa, which is a stage of doubts. So, and the example is given that, okay, again, the scripture says that household life, there's so many issues, so many problems. All right, let me forget about it, right? It's just, but then, again, there's certain verses and it says, well, it's good, there's many benefits to it. So, all right, well, maybe, so it's like going back and forth, right? So, I don't know, maybe I'll take sannyas, maybe a brahmacharya, so goes like that. So, Vishya Sangar, this stage is the internal tug of war with material sense enjoyment. So, means that, the senses are pooling, and there's a struggle there going on. Person's struggling with that sense enjoyment. So it goes on. unrealistic vows. This is Niyamakshama. Devotee vows to increase in devotional activities. He resolves to chant 64 rounds daily, offer 100 prostrated obeisances to the deities and the Vaishnavas. These are great, right? Serve the senior devotees, avoid talking mundane topics, shun the company of materialistic-minded people, and so on. Daily he makes these vows, but at the last moment he is unable to honor them. So it's a struggle. So it's not saying that these are bad, these particular vows, but there's a struggle to perform them. So this specifically one, the last category, this is called Taranga Rangini, or the last stage, Anishtata devotional service. So this is describing Anishtata devotional service. All these different obstacles means unsteady devotional service. So one of the things is Taranga Rangini. So the devotee himself becomes a treasure house of good qualities and mercy. That means that the devotion has passed through many of the obstacles and has become somewhat strong. So the devotee starts getting adoration, distinction, fame, which is dangerous, right? Could be dangerous. The danger is that a person will start to accept these boons and will cause him to again fall down or remain stagnant at a particular level. So these characteristics attract people who in turn crown the devotee with wealth, adoration, distinction, and position. Although these accolades come to him as byproducts of bhakti, they nevertheless may stunt the spontaneous growth of the creeper of devotion if he uses them for his self-aggrandizement. So, here, Joseph. So yeah, it's part of, you could say it could be an obstacle. Now, it doesn't have to be. Like if a person knows how to use material opulence, then they know how to use it. They know how to engage in Krishna service. Just like Sudama Brahman, it wasn't a problem for him. He got a lot, right? Inconceivable, actually. I mean, we just can't conceive how much he actually got. But he used it properly, and he was Krishna conscious. So it doesn't have to be. But Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is saying that this could be a problem. And again, it's individually and collectively, it's been an issue within history. Just like, I mean, it's just history, but Srila Prabhupada talks about the institution that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur established, right, the Gaudiya Math. And how, I mean, it was very powerful institution. I mean, they were powerful, a group of devotees. They weren't at all not making a difference. They were making a big difference all over India. And they went into Burma, and they also went into England, and so. But over time, they established. Do you think you could do some? Over time, they established big temples. And these temples, I mean, it was unheard of what Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was doing. Generally, the sadhus, they would live in, small shacks, kind of, if you want to call them that, or huts, or, bhajan kutir, there you go, shacks, huts. Vaishnav terminology, bhajan kutirs, they would live in these, small bhajan kutirs, and not opulent at all, right? Of course, it is opulence in a sense, but materially not opulent at all, and they were just simple life, right? So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he did something that just was practically not really done. I mean, practically kings and personalities like that would live in such places, like the temples that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur established. Like Bagh Bazaar in Calcutta. I went there, I visited there, it's still there, this particular temple. It's the temple actually where Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he left this world. But it's also you could say, the major temple he established in Calcutta there. This is, there's the, what's the famous one? Alta Dunga Road one, which thankfully ISKCON has now secured. We have that now. Very beautiful. But at a different place in Kolkata, there's Bagh Bazaar, and that was one of the main temples he established. It's a big temple. I mean, huge temple. And so yeah, I visited there. One devotee brought me there, and it's marble and rooms and all this. And the devotee was explaining to me that this is the particular room that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was talking about, that the devotees were fighting with each other for a particular room. And he said that because it's somewhat near the Ganga. I mean, the Ganga, does flow through Kolkata, right? But somewhat near the Ganga, and you get that Ganga breeze coming, and whatever. So that was one of the considerations, right? They don't want to be on this side; they want to be on. And I'm sure there was other considerations, but they were fighting over that. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, seeing this, and that was just symptomatic. It wasn't just a room. That was just a symptomatic of what was going to happen. That was just a sign of the future, right? Because sometimes we think, oh, it's just a small thing. Well, no, it's not a small thing. It's small things become big things, right? So therefore, at one particular point, when our Srila Prabhupada was walking with Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, or some historical cases say that they're in the room of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and Radhakund. So, anyways, whatever the case is, they were speaking at Radhakund, Srila Prabhupada and our Srila Prabhupada and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur told Srila Prabhupada that there's going to be fire in the Gaudiya Math. There's going to be fire there. Means there's going to be problems. He's predicting that. He's seeing them, and what they're doing, how they're thinking. And Srila Prabhupada noted that, and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, if you ever get money, print books. So Prabhupada went into Prabhupada's heart, and he really, he took that to heart, and he established the BBT, Bhaktivedanta Book Trust. He started printing books within India, first Back to Godhead, and then his Bhagavatams, and he also did Easy Journey to Other Planets. Right? He was working on Light of the Bhagavat also, which came out later. Actually, BBT America helped publish that. But when he came to America eventually, he established BBT, which Bhaktivedanta Book Trust, which is amazing actually in the sense that it's separate, you could say. I mean, there's ISKCON and there's BBT. So in other words, if ISKCON somehow or other, might go, right, then BBT's there, right, and they'll.
Don't go, I need you.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's amazing actually. Prabhupada set up, it's quite an endeavor actually. I mean, who sets up a book trust, right? I mean, it's Bhaktivedanta Book Trust. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur also said, if I could just sell this marble and print books, I would do that. It's better, because he said we're much happier at Alta Dunga. We're much happier, right? So one particular, I mean, and that's the challenge, because you could say when someone's living a simple, humble, right, life, then a lot of the times they find it more easier to be Krishna conscious. And then when all this opulence comes, it becomes a bit of more of a challenge, a problem. And some devotees have commented on that it may seem hard to build a big temple in India, for example. I'm talking about ISKCON devotees also, by the way. it might be hard to build a temple, and it is hard, right? You gather all the money and fundraise and, right, do the whole thing, and that's difficult. But it's been noted that actually and some of these have been real struggles, like the Juhu temple, for example. It's most famous struggle to build a temple. They did it though. But devotees have noted that actually a lot of you could say the biggest challenges happened after the building of such temples. It's interesting, because then all the material opulence is there. Immediately you have a big temple, and people in India specifically, and that means people come daily. And what do? They just don't come and leave, but they come and they drop money, right? A lot of money, because there's, India. Is it the biggest population in the world now? All right, so there's a lot of people coming to the temples still. So that means a lot of, even if everybody's giving, 2 rupees, 5 rupees, if you get so many people coming, it turns to a lot. Somehow or other, the last 2 times I went to Vrindavan, I think it was the last 2 times, but I did it twice. But I showed up to Vrindavan with Santosh, our old friend Santosh Avatar, we call him. I showed up with Santosh, Brahmachari. He's doing good. He's over there in North Carolina, worshiping the deities. He's worshiping the deities. He's cooking Rajbhog a few times a week. Nitya, I think they're together. Good. And he's living in, you could say, like a men's house, near the temple. So yeah, he's doing good. So anyways, we went to Vrindavan and we showed up there. We went to Krishna Balaram temple to take darshan of the deities and pray. Please engage in your devotional service. And then they came up and they said, "Hey, Prabhu, can you help us? We need some help in the back." So we go in the back there and behind the altar, and there's like 15 devotees there, and then we sit down, and the room's just like packed, full of rupees, just like packed, like it's like a, and we're just sitting there, like counting, count, it's like packed, and we didn't know what we were getting into, but we're there for quite a while, It was nice, but it was interesting right when we got there. It was like the first day we got to Vrindavan, a long trip from America. So, and then afterwards they gave us some Mahaprasadam. And so yeah, a lot of money is coming in, So it could be a challenge, and we see that historically that it has been. Now, of course, we have examples of like Sudama Brahman, you have examples of our Srila Prabhupada, right? Like Srila Prabhupada said, first Krishna tested me by taking everything away, because Prabhupada was a businessman. He had Allahabad, he had his pharmacy, he was doing well. He had employees, and Bhajanarayan Swami likes a joke that they asked, I think Prabhupada was joking about it, but they asked Prabhupada, Prabhupada, what was in your medicine? Like the different, because he had different glass bottles of medicine, and Prabhupada said something like, 80% water, just joking. But he was doing well, but then it all just like fell apart practically, gradually, fell apart. And then Prabhupada, of course, he left his family, he left his wife and his children, went to Vrindavan, but then he said, he was actually so, you could say, poverty stricken that he was wearing these ripped dhotis, and Srila Prabhupada said that when he was going to print back to Godhead, he had to think to himself, okay, well, should I have breakfast or should I print back to Godhead? So he said, first Krishna just took everything away. That's how he tested me, Srila Prabhupada said. And then he said, then Krishna tested me by giving me everything. But he was able to handle it, obviously. Not just handle it, but he took the material opulence and did wonderful things. Build temples, print books, help people. Welfare work. So by practicing Krishna consciousness, it's not that, you could say, yeah, we also have to deal with so many different things. And the mantra, right, it says that Krishna's name, Nama Chintamani. Chintamani means wish fulfilling, right? Gem, you could say. So what we want, we may get. But Krishna, he says that for devotees, he may fulfill their material desires, but such a way that they don't want them anymore. You know, in other words, there's going to be some suffering with the package as well. Like a devotee may think, oh, I want to get married, right? And everybody thinks that it's unnecessary for them to get married, and then they could go without, and they could be happy practicing Krishna consciousness without. But no, let me do it. Krishna's okay, fine, do it. You know, but then there's some happiness there, but then there's some suffering, just like you have Chitta-Ketu here, right? Harsha Shoka, or whatever it is. That's just one example. There's so many examples. So we have to be careful what we're desiring while we're chanting our mantras, while we're chanting Hare Krishna, and ultimately we should learn how to relish the chanting of Hare Krishna, just as Rupa Goswami is relishing. Of course, it's a very high stage, but he's wishing he had millions of ears and tongues. It's an interesting picture, huh? So he could chant Hare Krishna and hear, right? And then some devotees have commented, we're trying to like force the Hare Krishna mantra into our ear. In other words, the mind's all over the place and it doesn't want to, the ear's not like taking it in, receptive. Whereas Rupa Goswami's is just, it's like flowing, So, like one person told me recently, he said, I tried to chant 16 rounds, and he said, and it was like hell. He said, 16 rounds is like hell, he said. I was like, okay. Anyways, at least he's honest, right? So he's a Brahmin. But he said, actually, I didn't make it to 16. I only made it to 8. And then he said, for 2 days after that, he said the Hare Krishna mantra was just going in my mind, And I was thinking, geez, what's wrong with me? Is there something wrong with me? Anyways, he's nice, comes around. But we should, learn to relish it by avoiding the offenses and by serving the devotees and others, like Ramanujacharya. He gives the great example, right? His guru gives him a mantra. What's that mantra? Om Namo Narayana, right? And his guru says, okay, be careful. It's for you, right? Just like the Gayatri mantra, right? We blast it out to everybody, right? It's a silent mantra for the practitioner, but he says it's for you. Don't share with anybody. You'll have some severe reactions for this. Although it's very beneficial, just don't share it. So then Ramanujacharya, the first thing he heard that, people get free from their suffering, they could go back to Vaikuntha. All right, and then he went to a high place in the town where all the people were walking, right? A lot of people. And he was yelling out to everybody, right? Please chant Om Namo Narayana, right? He was chanting. He was encouraging them, chant, chant, chant. And then his guru heard about that, and he got upset, and he said, I told you not to share this. And then Ramanujacharya, they'll be free from suffering, and then they'll go back to Vaikuntha. So he said, even if I have to suffer, that's okay. And then his guru, he realized, okay, he's actually my real disciple. He understands the higher principle. So one particular thing that's brought up is that japa, like they have Mathura, Vrindavan. No, excuse me. How does it go? Dwarka. What's the perfect, more perfect, most perfect? Yeah, Dwarka, Mathura, Vrindavan. Yeah, Dwarka, Mathura, Vrindavan. So you have Dwarka is perfect, Mathura is more perfect, and Vrindavan's most perfect, right? You usually think of perfect is perfect, but perfect, more perfect, most perfect. So similarly, there's this thing where japa is perfect. Kirtan, with the devotees, is more perfect. And Harinam, and going out to give it to others, that's most perfect. So someone may ask me, well, where did you hear that? And I'll say, well, I made it up. And I'm just joking. I didn't make it up. N.G. Swami quotes it quite a lot, and it's coming from one of the previous acharyas, which I don't know. Okay, so does anybody have any question? We covered 28 and 29. Just if anybody's wondering why I didn't speak on this Bhogeshwar Prasaktanam and was it Vairagya Vidya, Bhakti Parishanubhava Viraktir. That's why, because So, okay, does anybody have any question or
just one little
comment?
Or that most perfect, more perfect, most perfect, more perfect, most perfect. I never heard that in relation to the chanting, but there is something that really stuck in my mind because it had to do with the press worker. Early on, there was this devotee. I forget his name now. Names go, but he was running the press. We had a literal press in Brooklyn when they established there with the ISKCON press, physical press, and he was running it. And at a certain point, mostly pamphlets and things were coming out. The BTG, I think they printed there at first before they started printing so many, and they had to do it in Japan. And so this devotee wrote to Prabhupada, and he said, I just don't have time to do that and to do the whole morning program and everything, because we went to class and everything, And so Prabhupada said, okay, because the books are so important. At least you have to follow the 4 regs, chant your 16 rounds, and go on Harinam. That's essential for your strength. And that brought up, I thought of that because you mentioned that most perfect, and then I thought of the history of ISKCON, which I was around, And one of the problems that we encountered, because if you're really surrendered and you have competence in the matter of managing and so forth, then you got more and more responsibility. And the essential, temple presidents, GBC, and all the leaders. But what tended to happen sometimes is that they didn't have time. I mean, they usually would get to, the 16 rounds had to happen, although that also could get distracted, so many emergencies at japa period. The fact that you may have a responsibility across the country, we had someone, I'm not going to name any names, he was GBC for LA and New York and Hawaii. That means that at any time you can get an emergency call. It's 10 o'clock where they are, but it may be 5:30 or And so it impinged on the sadhana. Plus your mind is always thinking what's going to happen. There's a crisis here like that. And so you find that you had devotees who were responsible, but they were going through these 5 that you mentioned in the beginning, because they really weren't that mature. In the early days, everyone went on Harinam, everyone got on Maivan, and they were ready to move mountains. Okay, go start a temple in Germany, Hamburg. Okay, let me try it alone, and they were all fired up. So that's the danger, is that you take on so many responsibilities. Where is Tyler anyway? That you are not able to do the things that you have to do, to remain enlivened, which includes the morning program and the class and everything, and the kirtans, plus Harinam preaching is so important. So that's another,
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, I remember I listened to this class. Tamal Krishna Goswami was mentioning how, he said, I always chanted my rounds in the morning. He said I was never willing to sacrifice, my japa period, and he said whatever it was, I always chant in the morning. Tamal Krishna Goswami. And he said, I was never willing to sacrifice that. He said I may have, said others might have sacrificed their japa, but I didn't sacrifice mine. And he said, I thought that, well, if they fall in Maya, then okay, it's a problem, but, I could help them, But he said, if I fall in Maya, if I'm the leader and I fall in Maya, then it's a big problem. So, anyways, that's what he was saying. But he was joking about it because he was willing to sacrifice other people's job in the morning. But yeah, it's yeah.
She would chant with Prabhupada. She was chanting as silently as possible, but somehow Prabhupada knew she was there, And at one point, because I read this biography, he thanked her for chanting the japa so nicely and so early,
Yeah.
And she always remained enlivened.
Yeah, and it said that Prabhupada told her you shouldn't do anything else before you chant your japa. And then she actually took that very seriously, and she said that throughout her life she didn't do anything else before she chanted japa, her rounds, and early in the morning. And she said, there was one thing I would do, but it was a short kind of. She said I would. It was very cold. She was living in Canada. I mean, can't blame her, But she'd get the firewood and she'd put it in, and and then she'd chant, But yeah, that was it, though. But yeah, it's important to. You could say sadhana is our spiritual practices are so important practically that if we don't schedule them, and I was thinking to myself because I told devotees, okay, I have a schedule with myself, but it's not really with myself. It's with the holy name, or it's with you could say with our meeting. I have a meeting with myself. It's not really myself. I have a meeting with the holy name. I have a meeting with Srila Prabhupada's books, whatever. So I have to go, attend to that meeting. Yeah, that's a thing. That's a thing because, as you're saying, okay, with the management, with this and that, with so much going on, it's all this meeting, especially nowadays with technology. It's becoming a lot more easier, which is a problem. So we could say that just as managers or people in general, okay, they got to go to this meeting, that meeting, this, that. We should also have our meetings, right? Say, I have a meeting, right? It's a very important meeting with the holy name, And, okay, that's it. I'm closing the. Hey, don't disturb me, It's a very important meeting going on here, or reading, right? Hey, I got a meeting right here going on. So it's important to. We also have a meeting, like Srila Prabhupada said. It's Ata Shri Krishna Nama Di Nabhaved Gram Indriya Seva Mukha Jivada Swameva Spratida, that the holy name of Krishna, we engage our tongue in chanting the holy name of Krishna and taking prasadam. By these two processes, we purify our blunt senses, and then Krishna reveals himself. So prasadam's also there. You have a meeting with prasadam, right, which I think is going to come soon, right? But Srila Prabhupada said about his meeting with prasadam, he said, if it's not worth $1 million, don't disrupt my prasadam, just don't. So, all right, is there any other in the room here? Okay. You have someone?
Well, I was wondering if you could remind me, what was the name of Swami?
It's japa is perfect. Kirtan with the devotees is more perfect, and bringing the holy name to others is most perfect. So he repeats that quite a lot. Actually, I heard him repeat it recently. Just some month ago or whatever. And I was listening to a lecture of him recently. He's in New Zealand, and this lecture was probably 20 years ago. It's an old lecture. And he's initiating some devotees, and then he quotes it again. So he seems to be quoting it a lot. So that's
doing this series in Vrindavan, the stimulation for ecstatic love, So I like to see those. So he was doing one on Krishna's ornament and said, well, I have to cut it short because I have to go to Poland now to do the, he's going to have another Polish tour. I don't know if they suspended that during the pandemic or something.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
But they started it up. I think they've done like once.
Before, yeah. But that, he pumped. Started it. I don't know if you know the history of that. he got an inheritance from his mother. It was over $1 million.
Oh,
Yeah.
after she passed away.
Yeah, after she passed away.
I have something to say up.
And he used that to fund the first tour. I don't know if it was in Poland at that time, and it was the first one. And, he cleared it with Harike Swami, who was the GBC. He said, yeah, fine, as long as the BBD doesn't have to pay for it, great, because that's where all the money went.
It's like it has to pay.
And it's been going on ever since, because he can collect on it.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, I also heard this lecture, he said that his mother, she was from San Francisco, and she lived there her whole life. She would hardly go to L.A. or anywhere. She was there in San Francisco, in Swami's mother. And she was, like an atheistic kind of science, material science type of woman, and she graduated from Stanford or whatever, and she wasn't really into, religion and stuff. And in Swami said for 25 years he was sending her books that she would never read and just keep in the garage, collecting dust and stuff. And then she called him one day, and she said, "Oh, hello, this and that." She said, I have a request." She says, "I want to go to India." And he's like, "Well, you want to go to India? Like, you don't even go to LA, you don't go to India?" And then he said, "Okay, well, let's talk about it, this and that." And she's okay. Well, we'll call each other tomorrow morning, right? Yeah, the mother called at night, and they said, "Okay, we'll talk in the morning." So then the morning comes, and then he calls his mother back, and his brother answers the phone. And the brother answers the phone, and the brother says to Anjuna Swami, "What happened? This and that." And he says, "Oh, our mother just passed away." And then he says, "Oh, she had cancer." And then Anjuna Swami said, "Oh, she had cancer?" He said, "She didn't even tell me she had cancer." He said, "Yeah, she had cancer." So then Anjuna Swami said, "Oh, well, what was her last words before she left her body?" And then the brother said, "Oh, her last words were, 'Don't lament, I'm not this body.'" He said, "I'm going to Krishna." And then, she left. But then he found out, Anjuna Swami found out that all the books he was sending her for the last 25 years, when she found out she had cancer, she opened them up. And she was reading all of them, and she was listening to Anjuna Swami's tape ministry and Prabhupada's tape ministry, a few lectures a day, and she was cross-referencing and, really getting into it. So, anyways, he mentioned that. So he also got the inheritance and did that Polish tour. So no, I didn't know about that. So nice. All right. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.